Hi, welcome to the Bio-81 Tutoring Center videos. Today we're going to do an introduction into ecology. So to start off, what is ecology? Ecology is the study of interactions between organisms and their environment. And so we're really just looking at a lot of different things and how they interact. And so there's lots of different hierarchies of ecology. So at the very smallest end of the spectrum, we have an organism. So organism ecology is really just looking at a certain organism and how it interacts with its environment, its behavior factors, and its evolutionary history, and things like that. Next, there's the population, population ecology. Population is the same species living in the same area. And so population looks at interactions between different members of the population and how they compete for resources and things like that. A community is a group of populations living in the same area. And so community ecology looks at interactions between different members of different populations, specifically things like symbiosis and predation, and how they're interacting. Ecosystems. Ecosystems include all the biotic and abiotic factors, so all the living and non-living factors in an area. And ecosystem ecology looks at the interaction between the living and non-living things in that area. Landscape ecology. Landscapes are just connected ecosystems. So landscape ecology looks at how different ecosystems interact and how their matter and energy is transferred between them. And then global ecology deals with the biosphere, or all the ecosystems in our world, and it just looks at their interactions as a whole and how they influence each other. So two things to keep in mind as we talk about ecology is that ecology and evolution actually have a lot of parallels, and they connect and work together. Because ecological time is dealing with the day-to-day ways in which different species and organisms and populations interact, whereas evolution is dealing with the changes in the allele frequencies over time. And so ultimately, evolution is a result of ecology. Ecology deals with, again, these interactions, and depending on how these interactions go, there will be overall changes in these populations and species, or populations over time, which is evolution. And another thing is environmentalism. So ecology is a science. It tells us the interactions and what's happening as a result of our interactions with the environment. It cannot tell us what we should do as a result of that. That comes with environmentalism and advocacy and government and policy of this is the science, and because of the science, this is what we need to do as a result. So we need to make sure we keep those separate as we're looking at all this stuff. So the rest of the time we're going to be talking about distribution. So distribution in ecology deals with where species are and why they are in those locations. So it goes one step further than biogeography. And so we're able to kind of do this flow chart to understand why species are in certain areas and why they are absent from other areas. And so first we look at dispersal, then behavior, then the biotic and abiotic factors. So we're going to start with dispersal. Dispersal is the movement of individuals away from their area of origin. And so just individuals or populations spreading out. And so there can be another number of reasons why a species can't disperse to a new area. There could be an ocean in the way, there could be a mountain or a giant canyon, and so they're not able to get to new areas. And so when we test if dispersal isn't the only thing limiting, so if dispersal is limiting, we want to know, hey, if we could overcome this dispersal barrier, is there anything else limiting, or is it just dispersal? So what scientists will do is they'll do species transplants, or they'll look at species transplants, and that's when we take a species and we move it to another area, and we see if it can survive in that area. And if it can survive in that area, then we know that the potential range is different than the actual range. Potential range is the area in which species or individuals could live. The actual range is where they're actually currently living. And so if they could actually live there but aren't living there because of this dispersal barrier, then we have differences between these. So that's dispersal, but sometimes it's more than dispersal. There's other things that are keeping species from living in certain areas. And one of them is behavioral. Scientists don't know a ton about this, but basically there's just different behavioral things in species that keep them from living in an area. So one example is in certain insects, they'll have certain stimuli to lay their eggs only on certain types of plants. And it's just some behavioral characteristic, and so if they were forced to, they could survive on other plants, but they don't because of their behavior. So the next two things are abiotic and biotic factors. So abiotic factors are just any of the non-living factors in an area, and biotic are all the living factors in an area. So biotic factors, so kind of we went from dispersal to behavioral, now we're looking at biotic factors. So these are things with other species. So some examples are competition, predation, and parasitism. Sorry, couldn't say that word. So competition, maybe the species can't live there because it has too much competition with other species or organisms, and so it will die off because it can't compete. Or predation, maybe there's some predator in the area that it doesn't have adaptations to, so it will get killed off by all the predators. Or maybe there's some sort of parasite that lives in the area that it also doesn't have adaptations to, so it will also get killed off and cannot survive in that area. And sometimes another biotic factor is there's just not the species present that it depends on. So maybe a species relies on a certain food or certain other animal or organism for survival. And if that's not in that area, then it also can't survive there. So the last thing that can be keeping species, either plant or animal or bacteria, from living in a certain area is abiotic factors. So these include things, there's physical and chemical ones. I starred the chemical ones in red and the physical ones in blue. They're things like temperature, water, salinity, sunlight, and rocks and soil. So we know that temperature is important. If it's too hot or too cold, a lot of things can't survive. Their enzymes could denature, they could freeze, and so we need to have these right temperatures. And so there's different species that have adapted to their unique temperatures, but if we put a different individual or species in that environment, they may not have those adaptations. For example, in the desert, it's very hot, and so some species have adapted so that they can keep themselves cool, and if we put other things in there, they won't survive. Or there's other places that are really cold, such as in the Arctic with like polar bears and penguins, and they can survive those harsh temperatures, but other things won't be able to. Water is also very important. Most everything needs water to survive, and if we don't have enough water or too much, things won't survive. So example again is in the desert, a lot of those plants and animals have adapted to low amounts of water. If we put something else in there that's not used to that, it probably won't survive without that water. Salinity, so that deals with how much salt is in the area, that's also important. Keeping the right osmotic pressure and osmosis type things with that. So if we have too much salt, it can cause some problems. Sunlight's also important for photosynthesis. We need the right type and enough sunlight so that plants can be supported, and then thus those plants can support other animals. And also if we're too high elevation where there's too much sunlight and UV exposure, that can also cause damage, and so that would be potentially another reason why something could survive in an area. And the last one is rocks and soil. So that is things like pH and the elements and chemical composition of the rock and soil, because different plants need different soils to survive, and if those are not met, then they won't survive, and thus different animals might not be able to get the things that they need. And so then kind of another really important abiotic factor is climate, and climate is actually made up of a couple different abiotic factors: wind, temperature, sunlight, and water. And in another lecture video, I will go much more into depth about climate. And so that is all for today. I hope you have a better understanding of ecology and why and where certain species live and occur. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.